Back in the 70s, Canada was the place for young people to come and grow. I was 15 years old when I migrated. My parents were 52 and 62 when they came here. They sacrificed it so much, like leaving their established homes, their friends, their family, their way of life. They came because they wanted to give their 6 younger kids a chance to be successful.
I wanted our kids to be in an environment where they feel they belong, where you never had that question even come up in your mind, like, who am I, or why is my skin color this? I wanted my kids to have that sense of belonging. My name is Davika Misir, and I'm Guyanese. I came to Canada in 2005.
I'm from a countryside, a village, where a village took care of its kids. Everybody loved and take care of each other. You have a life that when you come home, you could run out and play with the other kids, and you're safe. And, you know, everybody's an auntie and an uncle.
Growing up in an environment that was focused on people and giving and kindness, and never focused on material things. That's what I grew up with.
I left behind my loved ones, my parents, my siblings, and my boyfriend. There was martial law in the Philippines. There was no, I would say, full democracy. And I want to be liberated. When I looked through the window, I saw this immaculate, beautiful white rug of snow outside. It was so freezing, and my tears fell down, and when I look at my tears, it turned into icicle.
The weather, the cold blistering winds, and the snow, it would be knee-high. You know, like soggy socks, frozen fingers and toes, but I didn't complain. I knew how much my parents gave up for me. I'm not going to complain to make them feel bad.
We used to hear about how because of the cold, the hair would fall off, and how your hair would be damaged, and different things like that. My name is Paula, and I was born in Jamaica, and I came to Canada in 1983. My mother brought us to Canada. She thought coming to Canada was a better place to make a better life for herself and for her children.
When I landed here, I was 7 months pregnant. I was amazed by the healthcare system here. Immediately, everything fell into place as if everything is already decided how everything should happen. My name is Lopa Banerjee. I am from India originally, and I came to Canada in 2011.
So the early days were tough when it came to money and going out.
My husband graduated from Acadia, Ottawa, Western University, Johns Hopkins, MBA, PhD, and he could not get a decent job in Canada. We always said the move was great for our kids. It was not great for our careers.
From being a working permit to a landed immigrant, I worked so hard, very, very hard. I did a little bit of my master's in the Philippines, but they considered it only equivalent as grade 11.
And we were actually set back in our studies. So we were, for example, when we came, I think we were set back 1 grade than we actually were back in Jamaica.
You see, sometimes as women, we have to tolerate and accept because we have something bigger on the horizon, like putting food on the table. We need the benefits for our kids.
I used to carry my 3 kids to Humber College, and I have to tell them, go in the other room, do your homework there while I'll finish my test or attend my classes. I have 2 diplomas here in Canada as a practical nurse as well as an early childhood educator.
I see it in the school system at every level. I mean, even with dealing with the school system with my daughter, going through public school here in Canada, people from racially oppressed groups, they're not graded in the same ways in which, you know, let's say a white person would be. And oftentimes their work is undervalued.
The positions that are high up are so locked in by a certain population and demographics that you can't even break the ceiling.
Some of the places I did go through a little bit of, I would say, discrimination or being alienated.
We want others to know that while we're grateful, these are the pains and the struggles we've had. We contribute to a bigger part of the society, and we're here to stay, and we belong here.
Because I don't want to go back because I spend too much money. You know, you have to sacrifice for the benefit of your family, my loved ones, my next generation.
The thing about racism and the thing about assimilation is that you come into a place that's not where you're from, and you have to change yourself into something that you're not.
One of my biggest struggles as a young immigrant to this country was my accent. 40 years ago, that was a big deal. I was teased, I was mocked. I struggled with making friends. I thought the people that looked like me would want to be my friend, but they didn't because they weren't migrants. They were born here in Canada. I came from a very conservative Muslim family. You didn't wear tight-fitting clothes, tight-fitting jeans. I looked differently because my clothes were different. It was all hand-me-downs.
I met this lady, and she said, "How your English, you know, your English is a second language. Maybe my accent or my intonation is different from, I don't know, with the real English, you know, what she really meant." So
There's always that possibility, right, of encountering some issue or some negative experience. We push them down, we cover them over, and we quickly get up and we brush ourselves off and we keep moving. There are two words I've come to dislike over the last several years. The word strong and the word resilient. To me, when they're used in certain context, it's almost like you're putting the onus on that person to resolve and deal with their circumstances that you've created, right? So, oh, you know, you're so resilient for having gone through that experience. Meanwhile, the systems are set up so that you go through that experience. And even though you've come through this one, it's still set up so that you may very well be going through it again. Why aren't they working on dealing with changing the systems?
We all have biases and prejudice, whether it's because of race or something, we all have it. But for me, the important thing is check yourself, be honest with yourself that you have these biases, and pay attention how those biases impact other people.
The way I spoke to my experiences and struggles were I wrote. I wrote what was troubling me, I wrote what was hurting me, what was I fearful of, what my hopes were. This has benefited me tremendously, and it has benefited all of the women in my cohort because many of them have expressed how they're able to heal some of their trauma and some of their pain through writing.
your program Culture Link, it's amazing. Way back when I look back in 1982, there's no something like this, you know. And this is really a connection with marginalized people like me.
Well, I really love this program. I'm really happy that I took it, and I'm really grateful that it was offered. It came at a time where, if you want to talk about milestone, where I am recovering from psychological trauma, right? So with this program, it's helped me now to sort of go back and think about things and bring back up some of these things to reconstruct, I guess, myself back closer to my natural who I am.
I have healed on many fronts. The last 8 weeks was an emotional roller coaster. It brought up a lot of hidden traumas I didn't realize that I was carrying. I would love to do my mom justice and write a piece on her immigration, in leaving Guyana and coming here as a 52-year-old woman. She left a business she ran. She left friends and confidants. You know, only in her later life she started telling us her life story. Her daughters, I have 3 other sisters. I wish I paid more attention and listened to her stories. I wish my daughter would pay attention and listen to my life stories before it's late. Because women are awesome allies for other women. My hope is that we could teach the next generation through our stories and the way we live our lives.
I think courage for immigrant women, and not just immigrant women, for everybody, is being able to really be as true to yourself as possible.
You want to be with people who understand the experience. It's one thing to know about it conceptually, but it's one to know about it from experience. I think support is crucial when you're going through these experiences. So for newcomers, they need to find a place where they can find people who perhaps are like them, or who can help with, walk beside them, walk with them, help to support them as they go through their experiences. My hope is that community organizations that have been popping up and building and growing would provide those kinds of services.
It wasn't until I went to college that I saw myself in the people that walk around the hallways. I have lived in Canada longer than I've lived in my birth country. I contribute to this society just being who I am, sharing my food, my culture, my religion. I belong here. And nobody's taking that away from me. My children belong here. My grandchildren to come belong here.
I can relate to them. I can always put my shoes, my feet on their shoes. You know how it feels to be a newcomer here. We are all the same. We are all the same.
What I'm proud of is having lived through all of the experience. I'm happy I did. It has grown me to the person I am today. I got an education. This Canada that I call my home, this beautiful land that has been so gracious to me and my families and a lot of my friends. We're humbled to be here.
When I came to Canada, Idi Amin had just taken over, and people with my skin tone were not allowed to live there. I was only allowed to take $200. That's all I was allowed to take. And I had to start from scratch, like not a spoon, nothing. And everything had to come from the $200. My name is Zeni. I came to Canada in August 1975. I'm from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. So young Zeni always wanted to be a physician. But when I was doing my A-levels, this situation with Idi Amin happened. So we had started with 120 students in our hall, and we were left with 6 students.
We moved here, we had no family, we also had no friends. It was a very lonely experience. Your entire world disappearing overnight from friends, family, cuisine, sights, sounds, grandparents. I like to look back on those days now as basically going through a tunnel and coming through on the other side. Well, my name is Shalini Newbert. I was born in Bombay. I grew up in Dubai, and I moved to Canada in September of 1995. I'd like to think that I am there for those who have to go through that tunnel, and I want to let them know that there is another side.
My name is Pauline Wangari. I came to Canada in 2006 and originally from Kenya. I actually came to Canada for a conference in 2006, which was the HIV/AIDS conference. When I got here, I did have a few friends who had spoken good things about Canada. It's full of diversity, and the fact that I was living in Toronto, so I experienced a lot of multiculturalism.
My first winter was fairly harsh, and I remember thinking that, wondering whether winter would ever end.
So we went to Honested's and we bought a coat, and I told my sister, it looks like a baby elephant, you know. I refused to wear it through the winter because I thought it's so ugly.
My name is Suzanne El-Makawi. My country of origin is Egypt, and I came to Canada in 1981 with my family. We came to Canada mainly because of the health care. I was only 10 months old. Sometimes I would get, you're not actually white, you're not really black, so what are you? And so I remember asking my dad, you know, where are we from? I'm Egyptian, I am African. Egyptians have black blood in us, obviously. But we are also Arab, and we share a couple of different identities, but it's a very unique and specific identity to our culture. It also meant I didn't really fit in with kids who were black here because I did not share the kind of culture that they had, and I did not share the same experiences.
I still have people who meet me for the first time and ask me, well, where are you from? Where is your accent from? But I am Canadian just like they are. No matter what passport I held, no matter what nationality I was, someone would always look at me by the color of my skin and judge me.
I was a student at Humber, and some people would be ignorant. Like, I remember very well one student asking me if African we live on trees, and I was like, at this day and age, I think at first when you come you don't notice them, or you don't know what you're experiencing.
All this probing about what is your education and how come you speak English so well, and it was very insulting for me, right? Because I was like, you know, I'm just same like you, right? I had worked with Canadians back home, and they were they were wonderful people. So I never expected this racism, subtle racism, but it was there. I could see what was not being said. I could hear, it's like a storm. You can hear it, you can feel it, but you can't touch it.
I think there's still a long way to go, because again, this is not done by just one person. It's very covert in Canadian system, and until you start to see it, sometimes you don't even see it. Like, sometimes you might be denied something that you wanted, but you didn't know why it was denied. Maybe that person got that opportunity because they look more Canadian more than myself.
There are inequities, there are microaggressions, there is systemic racism. It is our responsibility to combat it every day, to speak up.
In those days, nobody talked about it, right? So I would feel that it's only happening to me.
Once you see something, you can unsee it. And this is something that I also start with my kids and telling them this country that they have come and called home, that it has a history that's not so much get told in the mainstream media.
To get a job that I had the skills for was almost impossible. So you take a secretarial course. And I was fortunate I came here on August 2nd and August 4th. I think it was a Monday of 1975, and I was working already. But it was not what I wanted to be. And it was not where I wanted to be.
I find even myself, there are some positions or jobs that I feel like I wouldn't want to take because of how I'll be judged and how people will just feel like I'm not enough.
I was earning, and the bank would not open an account for me because they said, you must have somebody that knows you. And I didn't know anybody. And so then I had to ask my boss to come with me to the bank so that I can open an account. It's my money. It made me feel so small, right? But I have to tell my boss that these people don't believe that I'm Zenny.
My accent is already settled, so when I speak, you can always tell I don't belong, probably. I'm now a Canadian citizen, but some people will still question my being Canadian.
If you don't see around you people or the person who's going to help and change things, it actually falls onto us, whether we like it or not.
I take a page out of my mom and her courage, so to speak, to move her family here and to not have any sort of prospect with respect to employment. She took a huge risk. Our role as women, we still have a long way to go with respect to equity. We have to work a little bit harder than everyone else.
When I started high school, my family moved to a different area, and my dad actually told me before the first day of grade 9, you're gonna have to wear a hijab now. In the mid-1990s, there are very few girls who were wearing a hijab. In my high school, I was one of 2 girls who wore a hijab at the time. And this was in a very, very multicultural, diverse neighborhood, 1,500 students, the majority of whom were actually racialized. But I still was harassed. Actually, one of my best friends, we met on the first day of high school. She found me, she picked me out of the crowd. She was just like, hi, my name is Wajma, what's your name? You look like you're kind of new and you don't know anyone here. And she was so sweet. She's still my friend to this day.
I think courage is saying things that nobody else wants to say, or being vulnerable. You can feel the connection even without meeting with people, and know that people have come from somewhere, and we can celebrate each other the way we are, and we are not alone in telling our stories.
I can say that it made me stronger today, and really proving to myself that I do belong. I am home.
We've made strides, and as a 15-year-old in 1996, wearing a hijab and being one of 2 girls who did, and to now see, I live in a community full of girls who wear hijabs, who are so proud to wear it, and they look amazing. I was hoping as a child that one day that I would see representation of myself, not just in the media, but in power, in positions of power and authority. That's what I desperately wanted to see. And now I am her. And it's so wonderful to become that person finally, to be free, strong, independent, creative. That is my destiny, and that is what makes me distinct and special in this world. And I will continue on my path.